make sure I'm ready for this video real quick. Got my notes? Check. Pepsi? Check. Sunglasses? Check. Hat? Check. And yes, thick skin? Check. Let's go. Welcome to Golden Bluted, everybody. If you are a college football fan, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button because that's all we do here. Videos every single day. And when you get a chance, go check out our Patreon page. We have a lot of great perks over there. We call our Patreons the shot callers because they call the shots around here. Remember, $5 and up Patreons will get to decide the game that we're going to live stream in the regular season, and you'll get to watch with me, Golden Bluted. And our score prediction contest will be coming back. Every week I'll pick out a game, and my Patreons will pick the score, and whoever comes close to the score wins $20. And you can win as many times as you want. Came up with 10 things that the Big 12 either doesn't want you to know or they want you to forget about. The Big 12 is in more trouble than what they want you to believe. So here's the 10 things that the Big 12 either doesn't want you to know or they want you to forget about. Number 1, the Big 12 is the least successful Power 5 conference in the playoffs. And I know, they've been to the playoffs 4 times. That's more than the Pac-12. But they've only sent one team to the playoffs, and that's Oklahoma. The SEC has actually sent 4 teams: Auburn, Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. The ACC has sent 2 teams, Florida State and Clemson. The Big Ten has actually sent 3 teams: Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State. A lot of people forget that Michigan State made the playoffs. And of course, the Pac-12, they've also sent 2 teams, Oregon and Washington. So as far as sending multiple teams to the playoffs, the Big 12 is the least successful out of all the Power 5 conferences. The second thing that they don't want you to know or that they want you to forget is how bad their new TV contract is. Look, it's more than what their old contract is, but you're basing it on an outdated contract, and it's just a little bit more. And people forget the Pac-12 is about to renegotiate their TV deal, and the ACC is trying to bring in Notre Dame and West Virginia to renegotiate their TV deal as well. So best case scenario for the Big 12 is that they only have the 4th worst TV contract if the ACC doesn't renegotiate their TV contract. It's not as good as what the Big 12 is wanting you to believe. The third thing that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know or they want you to forget about, they're in limbo with a conference commissioner right now. That's right, Bob Bowlesby is stepping down as the conference commissioner, and right now the Big 12 has no idea who their new commissioner is going to be. They have no direction right now. They have no leadership right now. They're like a ship without their captain. That's a very, very important detail that a lot of people are not talking about right now. The fourth thing that the Big 12 wants you to not know or completely forget is how many teams that they've lost to conference realignment. They've lost Missouri, Texas A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas. That is 6 teams that they have lost. That's half their conference. That is insane. I know it's chopped up between 2 different conference realignments, but still, that's 6 teams. 6 of their biggest brands are gone. That is a big, big deal. Now, they have gone out and gotten replacements, but the brands that they have lost were big-time money makers for the Big 12, and it hurt the Big 12 tremendously both times. The 5th thing that the Big 12 wants you to not know, or at least forget about, is of those 6 teams that they've lost, they've only replaced them with 1 Power 5 team, and that's West Virginia. Even going back to TCU, they were a group of 5 team whenever they brought them in. And then, of course, now when they lost Texas and Oklahoma, they're bringing in BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. And I know a lot of people consider BYU a Power 5 team, but technically they're a group of 5 team until they get into the Big 12. So the only Power 5 team they brought in to replace those big brands that they lost was West Virginia. And that brings me to the 6th thing that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know or at least forget. And that's they are dangerously close to being a group of 5 conference. They keep losing Power 5 programs and they keep replacing those Power 5 programs with group of 5 teams. Like I said before, West Virginia, the only Power 5 conference team that they've brought in to replace the Power 5 teams that they've lost. TCU, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, all group of 5 teams. So that means 5 of their current members of the new Big 12 were group of 5 teams whenever they brought them in. Big 12 is trending in the direction of being a group of 5 conference. Now, whether that actually happens in the future, that remains to be seen. But that's the direction that they're trending in. The 7th thing that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know, or at least to forget, is that West Virginia is the biggest fan base and the biggest revenue producer that's left in the new Big 12. Yeah, that's right. I've given you the numbers. West Virginia has the largest fan base in this new Big 12, and they are tied with Kansas at number 1 as far as the biggest revenue producer in the new Big 12. And the only reason Kansas at number 1 is because of their basketball brand. They don't do anything in football. West Virginia contributes in football and basketball. So they're up there at number 1 as far as the biggest revenue producer currently in the new Big 12 once Texas and Oklahoma leaves. A lot of people don't want to believe that, but it is a fact. The 8th thing that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know, or at least forget, is that they've never gotten to a national championship in the current playoff system. Like I mentioned before, Oklahoma has gotten to the playoffs 4 separate times, but that's it. And they've never gotten past the first round. Because remember, Oregon actually got to the national championship for the Pac-12. The ACC has 2 national championship winners in Florida State and Clemson. The SEC has multiple national championship winners. And then, of course, the Big Ten has Ohio State as a national championship in the playoffs. Last national championship appearance that the Big 12 had was in 2009 when Texas played Alabama. And the last national championship that the Big 12 has won was 2005 when Texas won the national championship. So it's been a very long time since the Big 12 even made it to the national championship, much less actually won the national championship. The 9th thing that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know, or at least forget, is that by adding Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and BYU, they've only added one fan base that registers in the top half of the new Big 12 as far as size goes. And that's BYU. They'll have the 4th largest fan base as it relates to football in the new Big 12. The other 3 teams, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, they're actually registering at the bottom of the barrel of the new Big 12. Cincinnati is dead last. Yes, Cincinnati has had great success over the past 2 years, but they still have a pretty small fan base. Listen, they're in the state of Ohio. They have to compete against Ohio State as far as drawing in fans. And you're just not going to beat Ohio State. So how much did the Big 12 actually add by adding those 4 teams? Well, BYU will contribute. It's those other 3 teams that don't add much when it comes to fan size and producing revenue. Now, they'll have more potential since they're in a Power 5 conference, but it's not as much as people want to think. And the last thing that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know, or at least wants you to forget, is West Virginia and the ACC. They are talking. They have been talking. Right now, West Virginia does not have a formal invite from the ACC. Let's get that clear. There was a few criteria that was laid down for West Virginia to get the formal invite, and that was work on their academics and lengthen the runways at the airport in Morgantown by 1,000 feet. Well, West Virginia has worked on their academics, and they're extending the runways at the airport in Morgantown by 1,001 feet. So West Virginia is currently and actively meeting those requirements that the ACC laid down for them to get a formal invite. The ACC will invite Notre Dame and West Virginia. Like I've talked about earlier this week, Notre Dame wants to join the ACC now. They see the value of joining a conference, not only just money, but being able to get that bye week once the playoffs expand. And they are going to expand, because if Notre Dame doesn't join a conference, even if they do get the playoffs, they will never ever be able to get that bye week, because that goes to the top 4 conference champions. In other words, you have to be a part of a conference, and you have to win the conference, and you have to be the top 4 champion. So in order for Notre Dame to get that precious bye, they have to join a conference, and it will be the ACC. And that goes back to a few points that I made earlier. The Big 12 will be losing the only Power 5 program that they've added after losing 6 Power 5 programs. They will also be losing the largest fan base in the new current Big 12, and the biggest revenue producing program remaining in the new Big 12. So yeah, the Big 12 is actually in a lot more trouble than what they want you to realize. There you go, the 10 things that the Big 12 doesn't want you to know, or at least to forget. Y'all let me know in the comments section what you think about this situation, and is there anything that I forgot on this list? Let me know in the comments section. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.